This is a journey into sound.
Mission control to intervention 1. Do you read me?
Roger, loud and clear.
Countdown. T minus 10 seconds.
Roger that one.
Systems check.
All systems are go.
Commencing countdown. In 3, 2, 1. Blast off.
Greetings, Valparaiso. This is Ken the Metal Professor, and it's Sunday, November 10th. Oh my gosh. The snow is about to come in, so I hope everybody's ready for that, and it's time for Mostly Metal. 2 hours of heavy metal goodness headed your way, and our sponsor for the show is November's Doom, which is pretty exciting. Larry Roberts from November's Doom is here in the studio. Thanks for coming by, Larry.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
And his compatriot Megan from the podcast Geeking Poetic. We'll
the
talk
podcast partner in crime, pal over here. Yep.
Official
2/3 of us anyway.
Official picture taker, and
Yes.
basically she's here to keep you out of trouble. That's
I am. That's my only job here. Keep him in line. It's a full-time job.
So far, so good. All right, so here's the plan. November's Doom has a new CD out called Nephilim Grove, and it has 9 tracks, and we're going to listen to all of them.
Oh, we're going to do the whole thing.
Well,
huh?
sure, of course. You
I
drove all the way out here.
apologize. I apologize to everybody in advance that has to endure that. You can always go put on some nice Crystal Gale or something to calm you down afterwards if it rattles your bones too much.
We'll take it a couple of tracks at a time, and just to make sure that everything's sounding right, we're not going to lead off with a November's Doom track just yet. I want to play one song, just make sure the channels are working, and I've already freaked myself out once because I played the little show intro there, and I could hear it from the studio speakers, but it wasn't coming through the headphones, and I was like, oh no, what did I do? But I forgot to take off a mute that I had put on earlier.
Well, Ken, you have to forget to press some button every time I come here.
No, I pressed too many buttons. That was the problem.
I see.
So, but we are recording. Hopefully, we are broadcasting. The levels on the board are going up and down, and it's coming through the headphones. Everything's good. I just need to make sure that my tablet is playing right through the board with both channels, because sometimes that's a little iffy around here.
Boy.
So, have you heard the new Ozzy Osbourne song?
I skimmed it. Yeah, I heard like a little bit of it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have it, and so that will be the sacrificial first song here, just to make sure everything's going. And then once we've heard the new Ozzy, we'll kick it off with a whole lot of November's Doom. Mm-hmm. And this is called Under the Graveyard. And I don't know that there's a named album it's coming off of yet.
I don't believe so.
It's a single so far, as far as I know. But if you've been waiting for some new Ozzy, here you go.
That does not compute.
This is why I test things first.
This is the best Ozzy I've heard in years.
Okay, we're going to listen to a Ronnie James Dio song.
Instead? Okay. We'll do that.
Ronnie James Dio, I know what happened. Ronnie James Dio has some re-releases coming out. I don't know if they're remasters, but they're releasing some of his solo albums with some extra live tracks. And so this was just a little teaser that we got from the upcoming re-release of Magica.
Cool.
That was still Ronnie James's song. That wasn't me, I promise.
Yeah.
That wasn't a different song bleeding in. That was Fever Dreams off of Magica, remastered and getting re-released with some extra live tracks. We were talking during the song, there's going to be 4 Dio re-releases. I don't know specifically which one, so they're just kind of getting some feelers out. That's happened a couple of times recently. Iron Maiden did some remasters recently, and Motorhead put out this gigantic collection. And so the marketing folks that send us music will send us some of the teasers that they get. It's always fun to open up the weekly zip file of new tunes for you. And hey, look, there's Iron Maiden. Look, there's Motorhead. So. Yep. And I had no idea the Dio stuff was coming around, and I was looking at the files, and the corner of my eye caught Ronnie James, and I was like, no, it can't be. And I went back and said, oh, it's Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah, and there's so much of that stuff that I either had on like cassette or whatever that I haven't heard in years. So I definitely check that out.
How much money are you spending a month on your vinyl collection? You said you're still collecting vinyl.
Too much, but not a lot. Not a lot comparatively. I mean, if I actually put numbers out there, people would be like, "Oh, that's nothing." But I'm a broke musician, so any money I'm spending on vinyl is too much money. But yeah, I've been focusing on like foreign Kiss vinyl stuff, like Japanese pressings and German pressings of Kiss vinyl and colored vinyl and all this. So I'm buying, Hotter Than Hell for the 12th time in my life now because I really need that many copies of Hotter Than Hell for some reason.
Do they come with anything extra, or is it just the completionist?
It's part completionist, and it's part, like, sometimes it comes with extra stuff, and sometimes they're mastered differently. Like, some of the Japanese pressings just sound superior to the U.S. ones and stuff, and yeah. So
awesome.
That's my excuse. I'm sticking with it.
Well, enough about Kiss.
Yeah.
Let's talk about November's Doom.
Do we have to?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do. I'm sorry. For those of you that weren't here at the very opening of the show, I'm Ken the Metal Professor as usual on Sunday night. Not as usual. As usual, I actually have a guest in the studio to talk about music. I have people coming to talk about wrestling a lot, but it's not quite as common.
Sure do.
And if you've got anything to say, along those lines, we'll get to it later. But it's always fun to have somebody come in to talk about their music. And so Larry Roberts from November's Doom is in the studio.
I am.
He is a jack of all trades, and not only a guitarist and songwriter, but he's also a connoisseur of pop culture, can I say? And so he also has a podcast with a couple of friends, Vito, also from November's Doom, and Megan. The podcast is called Geeking Poetic, and Megan is here with us too.
I sure am. He drugged me with him.
Yep.
And so we'll talk about November's Doom, but when we get a chance, we'll also talk about we'll plug the podcast, and you can tell folks what you have going on there. So the new CD is called Nephilim Grove.
Correct.
Is there I know there's a track called Nephilim Grove on there that we'll get to. Is there anything to say about the album as a whole that's distinct from the track itself that the title comes from?
No, it's not like a concept album. We've done that in the past, like with The Knowing and stuff, where there's a deep meaning to it. I mean, our vocalist, Paul Kerr, is the one that usually comes up with just about all the conceptual stuff and lyrical stuff. He may have some deeper meaning to it. I don't know. I'm kind of at the point where I don't ask anymore because more than half the time I can figure it out for myself, because I know the man and I know what goes on with him. But I also kind of like to leave it to my own interpretations. And to be honest with you, I prefer to leave it up to other people's interpretations. Because if you look at the artwork for this and you look at the words and the title, it can evoke a lot of different possible scenarios and routes you can go with what does this mean. And we've already, since the album's come out, we've heard a lot of interpretation. Well, I think it means this. I think it means that. And they're all so different from one another. And that's part of the fun for us. So while I know sometimes people are like, no, I want to know. Explain to me what it is. We're like, no. We want you to figure it out for yourselves and come back at us. And then if you come back at us and you tell us, well, we think it's this, we'll possibly straighten you out a little bit, putting you on the right path. But yeah, as far as the title goes and the concept behind that song, it's a little nebulous, so I'm not going to go too deep into that.
You're like that teacher that won't tell you what's going to be on the test and doesn't teach you exactly what's going to be on the test. They want you to think about it.
Well, as a teacher, you might know that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, there are 9 tracks on the album, so this won't break down exactly evenly, but I was thinking we can go through them like 2 at a time.
Sure.
And just we'll play them in order, and we'll talk about 2 and then play those 2. So the 2 lead tracks are Petrichor and The Witness Marks.
Correct.
And so it's a little over 10 minutes of music altogether. And I have to say, you guys know how to pick a lead-off track.
When I wrote this song, this was actually one of the first ideas I came up with for the album, was this song. I mean, again, in its raw, stripped-down form. And right off the bat, I had a feeling. I said, I have a feeling this might be the the first song on the album. And this was before we had the intro. This was before it was all fleshed out. There was no words, but I just kind of had a feeling after doing this for 11 albums now, it's like you kind of get a good gut instinct about these things. So as it got closer, especially once Paul started putting the words and melodies to it and everything, I was like, okay, this has got to be the start of the album. But I have to give credit where it's due, because a lot of that intro, you people are going to get a little spooked at home, because this is a pretty scary sounding intro that we have. That was as much credited to Ben Johnson, our keyboardist, as it was to me. I kind of came up with a general concept for it, and poor Ben, I'm just like, okay, I kind of want this, and here you go, run with it. And he's just like, I could come up with 10,000 different things with that vague description. But I gave him a general idea, and then he was going through and he was like, what about this? And he came up with that, and I went, it made my hair stand up, because I said, okay, that sounds like The Exorcist, which makes me love and hate it at the same time, because I have a love-hate thing with The Exorcist. I said, that's it. That's how we have to start the album. Between that and then when I saw right around the same time, I got an idea what the artwork was going to be. I said, yep, that's it. Perfect.
Yeah, and I will shut up and play the song, but I'm glad you said something about the intro, because that's what stuck out to me was when all the instruments kick in, there's a it's not staccato, but it's just kind of, it almost is like an alarm, like this just repeated note. It up and down, up and down. It gives it this urgency to it that makes it sound like something's about to happen.
It is. I mean, it's almost like a horror movie trope, or it's supposed to give you a sense of like tension. And I think it worked.
It does work. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I better listen or I'm going to be in trouble.
There you go.
Okay. Petrichor and then the Witness Marks, and then we'll talk about both tracks.
Will do.
When they're done.
Rainfall fills the lawn. The dirt is blinding me, filled with euphoria. I'm so sick with joy.
No.
You can't just stop, can you? You've got to keep going.
I know. We're goofballs.
So that was The Witness Marks, and before that was Petrichor. Those are the two lead tracks off of Nephilim Grove, which is the new CD from November's Doom. And Larry Roberts from November's Doom is here to tell us all about this CD. We talked about the first track a little bit beforehand. We didn't say anything about the second track. Was there anything fun about that one?
No, I mean, Witness Marks was one of the last songs that we wrote for the album. It's funny that we have, for some reason, we don't do this consciously, but thinking about it now, all our most so-called death metal-y songs, like the ones that are really aggressive, heavy, a little bit more up-tempo, those always tend to be like the 11th hour songs for us. And I think it's just that we try so hard to be a doom band and fail because we just aren't satisfied with that. We're like, we write all these like melancholy songs and everything, and they're like 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes long or whatever. And then we're like 3/4 of the way through making an album, and it's like, can we please just write something that thrashes? You know what I mean? Like, can I just, something I just bang my head to?
Yeah.
And then Vito or I'll come up with some little riff, and it's like, there we go. All right. Start banging heads.
You got to be able to wake the crowd up with something when you're playing live, right?
Right, exactly. And it's we still, I think I talked about this when I was here for the last album. We really are conscious of album flow. I know not too many people care about that anymore because it's all individual MP3s and Spotify shuffle playlists. But you know, for Paul and I, we're older guys, and we grew up with the album, and so it still matters to us. I don't want to hear the Master of Puppets album shuffled. I need to hear Battery go into Master of Puppets, go into Thing That Should Not Be, and we take that approach with our albums. So what happens is, yeah, we were probably 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through making this, and as we're starting to line up the tracks, we're going, okay, what are we missing? And inevitably, we usually end up going, we need a little bit more upbeat aggression. And the other thing is we always end up going, man, we need some shorter songs.
That is the shortest one there.
Exactly.
Comes in at 4 minutes, 44 seconds.
Right.
And it is one of the, what I flagged it as one of the heaviest tracks on the CD.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, consciously so. I mean, we not that we necessarily sat down and said, okay, let's write the heaviest song, but I mean, we sat there and we came up with the riff. We knew we wanted something shorter and a little bit more to the point. And it was one of those where it was like, well, do we add an interlude in the middle here like we do some? And it's like, nope. I didn't even put a guitar solo in this song because I'm like, doesn't need it. Doesn't need it. A lot of the cool old like speed thrashy kind of stuff, or even punk type stuff that I grew up with, didn't really have much in the way of guitar solos, you know, or it was just a bunch of noise anyway. So I said, nope, no guitar solo. Let's just to the point, headbanger, 4.5 minutes, out the door, you know. So
it's very efficient that way.
Yeah.
So we're taking the tracks in pairs, and it's interesting what you said about the flow of the album, because the next two tracks are the title track, Nephilim Grove, and What We Become, which is, you know, it's not a mellow track, but if you were going to, you know, cozy up by the fireplace with your sweetheart for one of the songs on this album, it's probably going to be that one. And that's in that magic number 4 spot, which seems to be, I don't know if that's deliberate or not, where that's where Twilight Innocence was. That's where What Could Have Been was.
Yeah, that seems to happen a lot with us. Yeah, again, I think it is part of the flow, you know. It's kind of, yeah, you listen to a Beatles album and that's like where the Here, There, and Everywhere comes through, or something like that. Yeah, well, what ended up happening with this is, even though these two songs are very separate songs in terms of their themes lyrically, when we started putting these songs together, at some point we sort of realized, like, these two songs, however we sequence them, whether these songs wound up being 3 and 4 or 5 and 6 or 7 and 8, these two songs need to sort of go together. And that's why, once again, sorry, these two are going to kind of blend into one another. It just, yeah, it's almost like they're sort of complementing one another.
Okay, you guys have a video for What We Become. Is that? I'm trying to remember. I didn't research this enough. There's lyric videos for a couple of different songs. I think Petrichor has a lyric video,
No,
or is that like a full
Nephilim,
video?
Nephilim Grove
Oh, okay,
is
okay.
a lyric video. So both of these songs you can watch videos of sorts. The Nephilim Grove is a lyric video. It's also we call it an artwork.
Artist.
Yeah, artist video
Okay.
because it shows the artist Pig Hands. Interesting name he chose for that. Pig Hands did the artwork, and he actually filmed himself as he created the artwork. And it was great to have that footage. And we said, okay, let's, rather than just doing the typical lyric video where you just show the words going over the artwork and stuff, we said, let's do that, but let's also show how that artwork was created.
Yeah.
So I thought we did something a little different there. And then What We Become is more like a proper, music video. Petrichor had a video as well, which was all like behind the scenes, us creating the album in the studio, which actually, in case anybody watches it and says, oh, I like seeing that kind of stuff, I am working right now on editing together a full making of Nephilim Grove,
Nice.
documentary that hopefully will be out by the end of the month or at least before Christmas.
Okay, that's great. I actually did do a little bit of research on something, though, because I wanted to
Okay.
know what the heck a Nephilim was to begin with. Because I
Oh,
know
right.
I've heard that before. I've heard the phrase before, but I looked it up, and I found an interesting answer from answersingenesis.com.
Uh-huh.
And it says, Genesis 6 and Numbers 13, pre-flood and post-flood, list the term Nephilim that has been the center of discussion for many years. At this point, the identity of the Nephilim and the sons of God is still being debated in Christian circles. So you guys have touched on a controversy. There is a popular unbiblical view
Right.
that the Nephilim are space aliens, which that
totally
made
fits
sense for
Vito.
Vito. I put right there, it says Vito, exclamation mark.
Yep.
Of course, most creationists rightly reject this particular view for multiple reasons, but that is not for the discussion in this chapter of the views with some biblical support. Okay, there we go. Some believe that fallen angels bred with women and resulted in giants called Nephilim.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few different ways you could take that. And that's why I said this is one of those songs that I like to, let's leave it nebulous. It could be about Vito's aliens, because Lord knows, Lord knows, being in this band with Vito for 17 years or whatever it is, he's definitely impressed his alien beliefs upon us. So
Did Vito write Nephilim Grove?
the music,
Yeah.
we both did.
You both did? Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious to see. Maybe Paul got some vibes he wasn't aware of.
Yeah, no, no, it was a group effort.
Okay.
But yeah, the Nephilim. I'm Paul likes to throw a lot of religious imagery and reference. However, I do want to make it clear that we're not a religious band, but we are also not an anti-religion
Right.
band. So I know people look at the cover and they see the satyr red, hoofed guy, and they think, oh, this is more evil, satanic, heavy metal stuff. Not at all. We're not about that at all. I don't care for that stuff. I'm not. I don't like the whole satanic metal thing. I think it's silly. So
Even if you can't figure out what it's supposed to mean, or that it's supposed to mean any one particular thing, I mean, just the phrase itself is very, it's very lyrical. You guys didn't name the album "Fight the Fire" or something like that, right? Nephilim Grove has a really
well, the first
cool
song I
sound to
ever
it.
wrote when I was in 5th grade was actually called "Fire in the Flames," because it's not redundant at all. Because what else would be in the flames but fire? But so no, I've grown away from
There you
that.
go.
So
Okay. Well, let's listen to Nephilim Grove and then What We Become.
Enter the grove where the Nephilim roam. I am the shepherd of the butcher's design. We paint the devil with a golden tone. Follow me, I know the way. Bleach the earth with death and smite. Lead your sheep to the slaughter. Walk with me. The soiled earth is paved in blood. This mortal coil is left behind. Wicked ways to establish want. Enter the grove where the Nephilim roam. I am the shepherd of the butcher's design. We paint the devil with the golden tone. Follow me, I know the way. Bleach the earth with death and smite. Lead your sheep to the slaughter. apart. Who will hear us now and listen to our heartbreak? Is this what we become when all your love is gone? What have I done? Scarecrow, just can't walk away. What we become one day. You love me like you used to. Someday you love me like you care. I can see this now, the burden where my fault lies. Running away from me, I see with perfect clarity as you left me alone. Will you hear me now and save me from my heartache? Is this what we become when my heart's exposed? Why have you gone? Scarecrow, just can't walk away. What we become one day. You love me like you used to. Someday you love me like you care. One day you'll miss my arms around you. Someday I'll be right here for you. I relive those words when I miss your smile. My will has gone away. I would wait for you. If you forgive my heart, I will always love you.
Another nice fade out. That was What We Become by November's Doom off of Nephilim Grove. And right before that was the title track, Nephilim Grove. You're listening to WVLP here. This is Mostly Metal from Valparaiso's only community, nonprofit, all-volunteer radio station. And Larry Roberts from November's Doom has come in to give us the lowdown on the new CD.
Like Boz Scaggs, lowdown.
Yeah,
I had to work in some yacht. I'm sorry. Sorry to do it.
So when Paul looks back on a CD, does he talk about whether he was he pleased with his vocal performances? Because that song that we just played, What We Become, he shows a lot of versatility there.
Paul,
I like it a lot.
Yeah, he really, he has. I mean, you've heard what we've done over the last few years, kind of as we've been putting them out, and he's been trying to push himself, and as we've pushed ourselves, and he really, I think, this time made great strides in pushing himself vocally. There's not just the sound of his voice and the way he's controlling it, but even like his phrasing. I love his phrasing on What We Become, because that we have no other song in our repertoire that sounds like that song. Even though it's slow and it's got the heavy guitars and the clean and the big bombastic part, and it's got a lot of the tropes you'd expect from November's Doom, but he added something new, and I think the vocals really make that song. I give him a lot of credit. And yeah, he's really hard on himself. He's very hard on himself. He goes back and listens to the old stuff and is like, no, I could do better. I hate the way I did that. We all do that. Everybody in the band does that. I'm really bad with myself in that. I already don't like the way I played on this record. We recorded this, about 6 months ago, and I listened to it now. Even as we're sitting there listening to it, I'm listening to my playing and the guitar solo, and I'm like, oh man, you stink. Dude, you could do so much better than that. Go home and practice. I'm not being funny. I'm being serious. I'm really hard on myself.
How much of that do you get to change when you play live? I mean, do you find yourself forced to kind of recapture what you did the first time, or do you get to make changes that make you happy?
Well, yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's funny when you play live because, especially say as a guitar player, when you do certain things like a guitar solo, you put it down on disc and thousands and thousands of people hear it and they go, oh man, I love that melody, or I love that guitar solo you played. And then when you go out on tour and you play it live, they inevitably want to hear it done the way they love it. But it's a lot of times unfortunate that guitar players, we don't always like to play it exactly the same. And you get a little tired of man, I'm sick of that part where I do that bend and enough. Let me do this other thing. And sometimes people like it, and sometimes people go, oh man, he messed it up because it was so much better on the record. So you have to know how to take minor liberties, improve upon certain things if you're able. But ultimately, once you put it down on disc for, posterity, that's it. You got to live with it.
For vocalists, I've always wondered how many of them, I'm thinking like Geddy Lee, Jeff Tate, if 50-year-old Geddy Lee and Jeff Tate wish they could go back in a time machine to 20-year-old person and say, don't put those high notes in there because you're going to have to be singing those things live 30 years from now.
Oh, yeah.
When you're playing guitar, are there parts that you build into songs in the studio that then later on you're like, oh man, and not because you didn't like the way it sounded, but just because of the technique that's required to play it?
Somewhat. I mean, if anything, it's kind of the opposite. It's not that there's things that I did 10 or 20 years ago that I can't play now. It's that there's things that I'm like, I would do that so much better now. Listening to guitar solos I did on The Knowing or something back in 2000, stuff I wrote when I was still in my mid-20s. Now I'm getting close to 50 and I'm like, I've gotten a little bit better than that now, But again, it comes into that whole thing where people are like, yeah, okay, your technique might be better now, but that's not the way I've been listening to it for the last 20 years, It's like nobody wants to hear Jimmy Page play an updated, sweet-picked version of the guitar solo in Whole Lotta Love, you know? Even if you listen to it and you go, well, it's sloppy or some of the notes are a little questionable, it's the guitar solo on Whole Lotta Love. That's what people want. That's what you did. So that gets a little tricky.
Yeah.
But same thing with Paul and his vocals. He wants to sing certain things now, whereas maybe on the old records he would do more of the spoken word kind of thing, or maybe he would just scream or growl something. And now he's like, oh man, I've got such a better technique for that. But then people go, oh, see, he's not doing it right anymore. It's the way it goes.
Yeah. And you guys have a live show coming up in December, right?
We
It's
sure do.
Reggie's, the usual Christmas, what do they call the
Holidays of Horror.
Holidays of Horror. With
Yeah,
Macabre.
our friends in Macabre and their manager Rodney Pollock. Hi, Rodney. Every year for I can't even tell you how many years now. It's been many, many years. Do an annual Christmas time extravaganza of a show in the Chicago area. And as of the last several years, it's been at Reggie's, which is a really cool place. We've played there many times. And we're playing with Macabre. We're playing with Without Waves, which is a great proggy, metal band from Chicago. Awesome guys, one of my favorite bands. And a bunch of other really good bands. So, and we are also going to be playing this whole album in its entirety, which is a bit of a feat, let me tell you. Because you write these albums and you don't think about that stuff. And then my singer comes to me and says, hey, we got asked to do a show, and we're gonna do the whole album from beginning to end. And I'm like, dude, have you thought about the logistics of that? Like, Vito came up with like 5 different tunings for this album, man. It's like, the whole backline's going to be nothing but spare guitars.
You're supposed to save that for like the 20th anniversary of the album.
Right, yeah. Well, and it's crazy to think that we've already got that sort of thing upon us, 20th anniversary of The Knowing. It's the 15th anniversary of Pale Haunt Departure. We've already had a lot of people asking us, like, when's that coming? When are you guys going to do something special for Pale Haunt Departure, since that's like our classic quote-unquote album and everything, and we're talking about it. We've got some ideas.
I'm excited.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Well, I was excited until you said 15, because if I count back, I'm sure you're accurate, but that's just wrong.
That it's been 15 years?
Yeah.
I've been in November's Doom since 1999, and so I'm coming up on my 21st year of being in this silly band. I don't know what's wrong with me.
So you joined when I moved here to Valpo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A long, long time ago.
Okay, let's listen to more Doom to make ourselves happy. Then we're taking these tracks off of Nephilim Grove 2 at a time, and the next 2 are Adagio and Blacklight. I will say so far that Blacklight is my favorite album. Or my favorite song on the album so far.
Interesting.
And we had talked before we went on the air, or during one of the other songs, that every once in a while you will admit to having gathered inspiration for some parts of songs from other artists, in the sense that you take something that you like and twist it a little bit and put it in there. And I was wondering if the opening of Adagio is one of those pieces, because that opening that we'll hear in just a second, to me, sounds different enough from kind of what I would say is the normal November's Doom.
Okay.
And somehow just the melody to it, I was like, it started triggering things like I might have heard something similar before, and I wasn't sure if that was one of the places, or if I'm totally off about it.
But where do you think it's from?
Oh, I have no idea. I was just like...
So the beginning riff of Adagio. When I wrote that, my influence for that, it was kind of like this weird... sort of like, what if Chris DeGarmo from Queensryche tried to write a My Dying Bride riff? Seriously, that's kind of like where I was at with it. I was just like, I wanted to have a certain kind of feel to it, that the note choice, it's not the first or last time I'm sure that we've borrowed from Queensryche, because, I like Queensryche. Vito digs Queensryche. We've stolen from him before. But so I usually try to stay away from anything that's My Dying Bride-ish because people are always insisting that we're copying My Dying Bride, and we don't. But in this case, I just had this crazy idea for this riff, and that's where the inspiration came from. So it wasn't necessarily a specific song or specific riff, but it was more like a feel of, you know. Can you imagine Jeff Tate singing for My Dying Bride? I just thought about that. That would be so weird.
This is a total tangent, but before we were on the air, we were talking about the Arcada Theater.
Yeah.
And one of the shows coming up in the spring is Jeff Tate. He's doing Rage for Order and Empire all the way through both.
I know, and I love both those records. The guy who produced the Rage for Order album, Neil Kernan, produced our fourth album. So when we recorded that album, I had all these questions about Rage for Order. I was like, man, that's my favorite Queensryche record, and how'd you guys get this sound and that? And he was just like, oh, please stop bothering me. Like I did that like 20 some odd years ago, man. But no, he was cool about it. But yeah, I'm contemplating going to that. I know Jeff Tate is a little hit or miss anymore with a lot of things, but I might have to go see that.
Yeah, I was thinking about it too. Anyway, here comes Adagio, which is about 5.5 minutes, and then Blacklight, which is 6. Nope. I missed.
when the daylight goes away. Everything that you want me to be is buried deep within the ground. You pass the blame, all the same. Try to shine your light far away. World decay.
That was Black Light, and before that, Adagio off of Nephilim Grove from November's Doom. I'm Ken the Metal Professor. You're listening to Mostly Metal here on WVLP. Larry Roberts from November's Doom is in the studio, and we're just going through one track at a time, and we've now made it through the first 6 of 9.
If we make it through the 7 of 9, then we could start talking about Star Trek.
That was well done. Right? That was a good.
I'm always on Nerd Alert, you know.
Good segue there. One of the neat things that happened to you guys recently was a tribute show. Or was it a CD or was it a show?
It wasn't a show. Although I think I saw somebody talking about, we should do a show and everything. I'm like, that'd be cool. I don't know if I could make it because it's in South America, but no, it was a tribute CD.
Okay. And so several Brazilian bands put together this. How many bands were involved altogether? How many songs
15,
did they do? Okay.
I believe 15 different bands that were all South American and various, parts of town down there. I was really surprised when I found out about that. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have great fans in South America. We've played there, love it. Just some of the most dedicated fans down there, really appreciative. When we toured down there last time, we did a meet and greet like after we played the one day, and I think we were signing for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. It was a long time, and everybody said, we're so grateful that you did this for 2 hours. And we're like, man, we're grateful you stood in line for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, thank you. We're so appreciative of them. And then when we found out that these bands were getting together to pay us, tribute, we were like, why? I mean, like, we appreciate it, but like, there's so many other bands, but no, they love it. And what's cool is they did their own interpretations by and large. So they don't necessarily just sound like straight up covers, but they put their own personality into it, and so that was fun for us to hear.
And you guys have a video of the 5 of you sitting around and sort
Yes.
of going through the tracks of this and doing your own commentary.
Yeah, it's on our YouTube channel, which if you look it up on YouTube, it's like / November's Doom 1989 is our channel on YouTube. And yeah, we sit around and we listen to it all and we just discuss it and, point out things that are different and things we liked about it. And then the rest of the time we just made fun of our bass player. Because that's what we do most of the time is make fun of Mike.
Well, sometimes Paul is like, man, I'm going to steal that. I like what they did.
Right, yeah. That's what I said. There were things they did in that tribute that we were like, that's a cool idea, man. Like, that's not at all what we would have done or obviously didn't do. There's certain songs on there, especially some of the older songs. Like they did one of the covers of "Lost in a Day," which is not a song of ours that I like never want to play that song ever because I don't like it. Neither does Paul. But then there were things that they did in their cover that I was like, man, that's so much better than what we came up with. Like, I would rather go out and play this song and play their version of it. So I mean, that's so neat, man.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that I never imagined. I just wanted people to be interested in hearing what I played and wrote and come see me play once in a while. I never imagined that someday people were going to take the time to learn my stuff and make a CD out of it and be like, here,
Did you have any idea that this was happening before it came out, or did it just get released? And
no,
then you learned about
we
it?
did know. We did know that it was. I mean, we found out once it was already like the ball was rolling. But the main way we found out was because some of these bands came to us and were like, "Hey, we're having a hard time learning some of this stuff. Like, it's hard to figure out because people assume a lot of times people listen to our stuff and because we're not as proggy as Yes or Dream Theater." They think like, oh, this stuff's simple. And then they actually sit down to try and learn it. And then they're like, oh, yeah, this is a little more intricate than we thought. So we actually did help some of them out. They were like, we can't figure out the chords here, and send them some notes. But on the whole, I mean, these guys did their own interpretation. In some cases, they flat out played things just totally different, which I'm cool with, like do that. It's like when Nevermore covered Sound of Silence by, they just did their own interpretation of it. It has very little to do with the original, but both are brilliant. Love it.
Have you gotten back to them and told them they have to do it all over again now that you have more material?
No, I'm grateful that they did it in the first place. The funny thing is now we've got a whole thing going where we're putting out our music on sheet music. We're doing tablature now through Resistance HQ Publishing, and we just put out the Nephilim Grove book. We're going to be doing Hamartia, our last album. We're going to do Pale Haunt Departure. We're going to do all those. So now all these dudes that spent all that time trying to learn it, they're going to be like, oh, we could have just got the book and spent a lot less time trying to learn this stuff. But sorry, guys, you beat us to the punch.
Someday I'll learn how to play an instrument, and then I'll pick up one of those. And see
There
how it
you go.
goes. All right, so we've got 3 last songs to go on Nephilim Grove, and what do you think? Should we just plow through all 3, or you want to do 2 of them and then?
Well, let's do 2, and
Okay.
then because
Break in for
the
the
last
last one.
song is probably the most different song on the album. So I'll talk a little bit about
Okay.
that.
All right. So tracks 7 and 8 are The Clearing, Blind, and
Yeah.
Still Wrath.
Yep.
And this will be about 11 minutes of music all together. Let me make sure I tap the right. So the file listing I have is compressed on my screen, so I can only see like the last 3 letters of each title.
Oh, geez.
And so I've got to make sure I find IND. There it is. Okay.
Almost had enough. Can our dreams carry on? Under stress from a failed life. Shattered mirror reflects the cross. I do not fear the echo's death. Only to be forced away within these walls, the scent of ruin through the barren halls feeds the beast, exhaling breath. The fragrance of rot, a taker of souls, she ravages death with passion. Here you reside in this frail house, beneath the squalor and the filth. I will not feign my hate for you. Within these walls, the scent of ruin through the barren halls feeds the beast, exhaling breath, the fragrance of rot, a taker of souls, she ravages death with passion. This time tomorrow, our story will be no more. A rot. A taker of souls, she ravages death with passion.
Liar.
the first couple times through the CD, I didn't notice there were that many kind of long fade outs.
Yeah, we have a problem at the end there. Yeah, it's like always somebody's always got to try to get the last word in. It's like Paul is like dragging out that last note, but then I got to come in with the silly little riff there. It's like just, it's all power plays, man.
It's probably offensive for a musician to hear this, but I was telling Megan that my normal operating procedure here for this show is to design a playlist, and I'll make sets of like 4 songs in a row, maybe about 18, 20 minutes of music, bring them all in Audacity and just kind of stream them into one sound file that's 20 minutes long. And when I see a song that's fading out, I'll go in there and I'll kind of drop it out a little quicker and slide the start of the next song over on top and stuff like that.
Oh, it doesn't offend me. I do. You know how on Spotify when you make playlists and different things, you can set the crossfades,
okay.
and everything, and I do that all the time because I guess I'm a hypocrite because I make these long fade outs and things. But when I listen to it, I'm like, just shut up and move on to the next song already, please.
Well, that was Still Wrath, and the song before that was The Clearing Blind.
Yes.
And the song we have left to listen to is The Obelisk.
Correct.
Obelus.
The Obelisk, yeah.
I did not look up what that is. What is an obelisk?
Not
obelisk.
No,
obelisk.
It's not obelisk. I don't remember the exact meaning of that word. This was definitely a Paul thing when he came up with this one. Yeah, this was an interesting one because it was also one of the first ones I wrote, ironically, given how different it sounds from the rest of the album. At least to me, it sounds different. I've seen a lot of reviews and stuff already where people have said this one kind of stands out for better or worse. And it was the most difficult one for us to write because it was the first one, like I said, one of the first ones we started writing, and it was one of the last ones to be completed. Paul was having a hard time figuring out what to sing about, how to sing it, and all this stuff. We had to put a lot of time into it. But, I mean, the thing is like I said, I know some people are going to hear this song and go, wow, okay, this is a little different. And I've seen people claiming that, it's got more of like an alternative rock kind of sound to it, or, various interpretations. But what it comes down to is that with each album, especially after all these years, 20 years for me, 30 years for the band total, it's like we have to push ourselves. And I don't think that this song necessarily sounds so different that it's not like it's Celtic Frost doing Cold Lake or something where they went glam rock and stuff. It's not so different, but yeah, there's a different kind of approach to it. I mean, getting back to when I was talking about like, how we're influenced by stuff and mishmashing ideas. I mean, I don't know if Mike wants me to tell people or not. He probably doesn't care, but Mike got the bass line for this from Rio by Duran Duran. So when you people are listening to this in the beginning, if you listen over the tribal drum beat thing, and I've got the little Pink Floyd-y delay guitar thing, try to listen real close to what some of the bass notes are doing. That little funky bass thing, that's total John Taylor from Duran Duran.
I had typed out just a few notes on some of the songs to talk about on the way through, and for the Obelisk, one of the things I typed was fun bass line.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike's gonna be so happy that you noticed that. Yeah, he put some time into it, and it was funny because he said, "Man, when I came up with this, Larry, I didn't know if you were gonna like it." And I'm going, "It's Duran Duran. What do you mean I'm not gonna like it? Don't you know me? Like, you tell me you're gonna throw in something that's like new wave or 70s soft rock and make it work, man. I will buy you a beer for that one. No problem." So, it's just a different, if for those at home who've been listening to this whole thing and get to this one, it's different. I'm not going to say that this is necessarily representative of where we're going, because we never know, but it was a different kind of ending track for us, because we usually end with some big epic, like the last album, I think our ending track was like 10 minutes
it was
long.
9 or 10 minutes long.
Right. It was a big, sad epic. We always do that. And this time it was like, let's just do something else, man. Let's take this song. When we wrote it and we finally finished it, I said, let's make this the final statement. And you just kind of all went, okay, all right, why not?
So there you go. This is the November's Doom dance tune.
Yep, exactly. Get your dancing shoes on.
And that's it.
That's all she wrote.
That's the end of the whole kit and caboodle. The song was The Obelisk, and that's the last track on Nephilim Grove. New
I think
CD
that one's
from
my
November's-
favorite.
Really?
I think so.
Interesting.
I keep changing my mind, so as of tonight.
I'll do that a couple of different times too. I did notice and mark down here that the last two tracks that we heard, Still Wrath and The Obelisk, to me sound like, I don't know if the busiest in terms of the amount of different things that are going on instrumentation wise.
Yeah.
What I mean is, like, normally when I hear a November's Doom song, like let's say The Witness Marks or something, it's good and heavy. My attention usually isn't drawn to a particular instrument for a long period of time. It kind of comes at me as a whole
Sure.
unit of music. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Whereas in the last couple of songs, I would immediately pick up on, like the guitar lick at the beginning or the bass line, where this time I'm actually being drawn to hearing a particular instrument and going, wow, that's pretty cool that, I like that part.
I think that there's reasons for that. I think that it was because, kind of like I said before, we played the song, like Mike put a lot of, not that he put plenty of time into all the bass lines, but that one in particular, he was kind of like, oh, I'm going to really do something a little different here. And, drumming wise as well, guitar wise, there's a lot of different stuff going on there. There's stuff that, especially because the more, I'm doing a lot of left-handed tapping, hammer-on kind of more busy sort of stuff than we're known for doing. I'm usually more of a David Gilmour open space kind of player, and so that's like much more busy. The vocals are layered. Paul does how many different vocal styles in this song? 3 or 4 different vocal styles within the song. Layered harmonies. That's why I said it's definitely a little bit more intricate. Might not be progressive in what a lot of other people out there would consider progressive, like Tangerine Dream progressive or something. But to me, for us, it's definitely more of a progressive kind of song. And I think Still Wrath has some of that too. Obelisk is more my song, and Still Wrath is more Vito's song. So that was kind of both of us stretching out a little bit.
Well done.
Thank you.
All in all, I look forward to many more trips through this CD.
Yeah, I'll be interested to talk to you because it's so new and see where it sits with you, because you're pretty well versed in everything we've done. So I take your opinion, seriously.
No pressure there.
Yeah,
no pressure at all, Ken.
I just can't make something up to get him to stop asking me questions then.
Nope. I'll know.
Okay. So when's the next album coming out?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, not for a while. I need a break, man.
Well, you're kind of on a fairly steady every other year schedule, so we'll count on 2021.
Right. Well, we are on a new record label, than the last time. Hamartia was the last one to come out on the End Records, and now we are with Prophecy Productions out of Europe, and it's great being on a European-based label, honestly. A lot of people would think, well, don't you want to focus more on home and all that kind of stuff and American, keep it American? Nope. Not when it comes to this kind of music, unfortunately. Not that there's not some good labels in America. There are. But for us, this just made sense. These people that work for Prophecy, they're enthusiastic about what we're doing, how we're doing it. They're working together with us, which is a novel idea. And, I'm sure they would like us to, if this album is successful at least, I'm sure they would like us to be more efficient and productive and stuff. So, I've already got some ideas. We were rehearsing the other day for the December gig. So it'll be our first gig we're going to be playing for the new album. And already I was there screwing around, and I came up with some new riffs, and Paul immediately said, Vito, record it. Like, that's a good idea. And so there already the roots have, started to form there. So you never know. 2021, probably.
Good. As a reminder, that gig, for people that didn't catch it the first time, is December 21st at Reggie's.
Yes.
It's the Holiday of Horrors with Macabre and you guys and Without Waves. And the other band I wrote down was He Who Corrupts.
Yes, He Who Corrupts are on there. Yep.
And I don't know if there's going to be others.
There are.
by the time that comes
Yeah.
around.
There's a bunch of other bands on there. You can find all that stuff at, I think it's reggieslive.com, and you can find it, at novembersdoom.com. You can find it on, it'll be promoted quite a bit. Tickets are on sale and stuff, and they usually do some kind of like cool sales and stuff for like Black Friday or something. So if you want to keep an eye out for that.
Are you gonna have like a new line of merch with different T-shirts and stuff like that?
We are planning on it.
All right.
Yeah, that's the idea. We'll
I
definitely.
think you have a hookup with somebody that does stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
so-
yeah. No, we're planning on it. We should have new merch, new T-shirts, maybe some other stuff, some other kind of apparel. Depends. We'll see. But we've got the music books, for all the music geeks out there that want to learn how to play stuff. We got the books. We're going to have limited vinyl, colored vinyl, all that kind of stuff, because that's my thing. I got to have that. So yeah, it'll be good. And then after that, we will be announcing hopefully more shows, tour plans. We just kind of leaked out to the public that we're going to be sometime. We can't announce dates yet, but sometime in the near future, we're going to be going to Australia and New Zealand. So if you come from a land down under, I will be there with a
Vegemite sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. With my best business as usual Men at Work T-shirt on, because I love Men at Work. I really do. I just played 2 Men at Work songs at a gig last night.
Nice.
And wore that T-shirt.
No, that was Men
that
Without
was-
Hats.
That's right.
Yeah, I like all the new wave bands with men in the title. Apparently,
Let's not go down that path.
I just
He's against cutting you off right there.
I like new wave music. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's okay. So, also going on, because Megan is here and we have a few minutes, let's not neglect your other passion, which is being all about pop culture.
Yeah.
And the two of you with Vito have a podcast called Geeking Poetic, which can be heard as a podcast, but also seen on YouTube.
Correct.
You're in the midst of sort of the Stephen King.
Yeah.
Stephen King mania.
Yeah, we're just wrapping it up. Actually, we just was it yesterday or today? We just put out the third installment, the third episode. Each episode of the podcast is usually around an hour, so not too terribly long. But we were just wrapped up, like talking about our favorite stories from the 2010s and everything. So there's real good stuff like The Institute and
Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep, which is amazing, and the 11/22/63 book, which is my favorite book of all time, and then there's the worst miniseries of all time, which is 11/22/63. Because
boy. Here we go.
No, I won't go on about it, but
If you want to hear him complain.
yeah, if you want to hear me complain and explain why it's the worst of all time, go and check us out at geekingpoeticpodcast.com. But yeah, Megan and Vito and I have known each other for a long time.
Very long time. Feels like forever.
When you're hanging around me, it tends to feel like forever. But we just thought a couple years ago that it would be really fun because we always talked about this stuff, It was always, after a concert or hanging out at a party or whatever, we'd be talking about our favorite Indiana Jones movies or whether Star Trek was better than Star Wars and all the typical nerdy, geeky stuff. And we just said, man, let's just talk about it officially, Plus, we'd always come up with silly ideas of like, wouldn't it be funny if we did a spoof of Indiana Jones and we had Vito play Indiana Jones and so on and so forth. So we said, well, let's just do it. And it's a labor of love, we don't make any money off of it.
No. We just have a good time. We laugh most of the time.
Yeah. It's an excuse to get us out of the house and together. And yeah, that's the best part about it is we have fun with it,
Now, I may be totally wrong about this, but I imagine the dynamics as basically you having to keep the two of them in control.
In line?
Yeah,
Yeah,
is
pretty
that
much.
Is that accurate? And
Yeah, so
how
that
hard a job
comes
is that?
through whenever we're doing this.
Yeah.
I'm like constantly shooting him looks like, stop talking. Move on.
Yeah. Okay. you
Save
said
it for
that
later.
enough. Right. Exactly. Or
So,
wire. Yeah.
if the podcasts are currently about an hour long, if you weren't there as a controlling influence, how long would they go?
3 hours minimum.
Oh, easily.
And they have.
And they have. If you look at our early
Yeah.
episodes, they were long, and it was like, okay, look. And I know I have a tendency to like repeat myself a lot,
go off on tangents.
I am the king of tangents. I mean, geez. I think we've gone off on tangents just here tonight in 2 hours, you know.
That's a good name for like a side project musically. King of Tangents.
Well, that would be my side
That would
project
be
because,
it.
boy, musically as well, do I go off on tangents if people haven't figured that out from the stuff I've talked about tonight. But yeah, Megan is kind of the glue. The glue between, because, you know, Vito has all his silly bad sequels and bad horror and, you know, found footage movies and things he's into, and then I'm more of like a superheroes and toys and Star Wars kind of guy, and Megan's kind of like in the middle of all
I
that.
kind of meet him in the middle. Like, I kind of side with Vito on this one, or no, Vito, you're crazy. I'm with Larry.
Yeah, and it works out really well. And it's a lot of fun. It's just good-natured fun stuff.
Awesome.
So,
We're working on hopefully getting some bloopers out. Maybe in the next
we've got
year.
so many. We've got
Those
so
are-
much behind-the-scenes stuff that I think is funnier than the actual things we put out most of the time.
Yeah, I threw pudding in Larry's hair one time
Yeah.
for the Jurassic Park
Well, you probably deserved it.
teasers. He
Oh
did.
my gosh.
It was so fun.
Pudding. She's constantly beating up on me, man. We're like, yeah, we're like siblings sometimes in that we're just like bickering, and you know, she's hitting me and throwing stuff at me.
You can't prove any of this.
I have footage
on
of it.
video.
It's going to come out. It's going to come out someday, and everybody's going to be like, "Wow, who knew Megan was so vicious?"
It's always the small ones you got to look out for.
Yeah.
Small, quiet ones.
All right. Well, thank you guys both for coming in. It's been a blast. If you didn't pick up on this, we've played the entirety of Nephilim Grove by November's Doom. When was that? That was released officially like November 1st.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that, I know everybody's like, oh, of course they put it out in November. That actually had nothing to do with us. We've never put an album out in November. That was all the record label. They said, your November's Doom. We're putting out in November.
It makes sense.
We wanted to put it out like 2 months ago, you know, but it worked out.
It's available everywhere fine records are sold, physically, digitally, all over the place.
It is. I even saw it on Target.com.
Wow.
Yeah, you can even go on Target, look up November's Doom. You can order the vinyl on there, everything. Yeah, this label's great. You know, they're really
That's
getting
awesome.
it out everywhere.
That's awesome.
So if you want it, it's there. Or if you want to just stream it, it's on Spotify. It's everywhere. So check it out.
Okay. And we can see you live December 21st at Reggie's. And in the meantime, you can get your Stephen King Jones on with Geeking
Poetic, yes.
podcast. All right. Well, thanks. I'm going to go back to the song I tried to play at the start of the show just
Nice.
to close out the last few minutes. Ozzy Osbourne has a new album or a new single out called Under the Graveyard, and hopefully it'll work for me this time. And
Fingers crossed.
That's how we'll go with it. All right. This business here will be up on YouTube later in the week.
Yes.
I'm going to make an attempt to just put it up as a whole gigantic file.
Okay.
We'll see if that causes like copyright problems with the music in the
might.
middle. And if it does, then what I'll do is I'll retain the talking and just kind of fade out and fade back in at the start and end of the tracks and
Right.
and get it
Yeah,
out
and
that
like I
way.
said, if you people want to still hear it, you can easily find it on Spotify and
Yeah.
other streaming services for free.
Okay. Here comes new Ozzy.